Hi and welcome to Kahali Halinang Pilipinas. Hey, look, you would have only seen my face on video, I think, once or twice before. I think when we went to Hacienda Escudero, when we were in the Philippines one time, I put my face on camera, but I normally don't because, I don't know, it's not that I'm shy, it's just that I normally like to show stuff rather than show myself. But in this case, I thought I really wanted to make a video on calamansi, our calamansi tree, or our calamansi trees, and some challenges that we'd had with it. I have some footage, but I just wanted to take you on a little bit of a journey. So in our garden at home, we live in Australia. In our garden at home, we grow mostly the things that my wife is familiar with. Obviously, because if she's not sure on what to do with one of the crops or the foods that we grow in the garden, then she's not going to be sure how to cook it, and it's probably going to go to waste. But we've got fruit trees in our backyard as well. So we've got we've got mango, we've got orange, we've got mandarin, we've got mulberry. We've got chayote choco growing in the backyard as well. Of course, being a Filipino household, we've got malunggay. It wouldn't be a Filipino household without that. But when we're planting crops, when we're actually planting veggies and salads, it's really important, I think, just to make sure that we're planting what my wife is familiar with. So the sorts of things that we're growing are lemongrass, tomatoes. We love tomatoes, except for my daughter. And in tomatoes here in our climate, all the nice big large beefsteak tomatoes or the larger salad tomatoes grow wonderfully in winter. Our winters are very mild, but in summer we get the fruit fly come out and we'll sting them all and just ruin them. So in summer it's much more about cherry tomatoes and smaller tomatoes that we plant and pick and throw them in our salads or whatever. But lettuces and Asian greens grow really well here, like bok choy and choy sum, or Chinese cabbage, so like wombok cabbage and things like that. All of that stuff grows really well in our environment. We grow eggplant, so talong. We grow sitaw, I think sitaw, was it sitaw? Long beans. But long beans grow really, really well here all year round, so we've always got crops of long beans growing. And look, we also we're also growing sort of different peppers and chilies. We can grow garlic, and we use a lot of that. Last season we grew a lot of sweet peas. But we got a little dachshund, right? And the little dachshund loves sweet peas. So it was up in the garden bed eating them all, and we weren't getting much. One of a big revelation that we had last year was beetroot. So beetroot grew plentifully, easily, no pests, got really good crops out of it, and the whole family loved eating the beetroot roasted just with some garlic and some olive oil, and throw that into a meal or throw that into a salad. And you can also use the beetroot leaves as a salad as well. That was famously popular. But this video specifically is about a bit of a journey that we went on with Kalamansi, and to take you through some learnings that we had as we were kind of going forward. So Kalamansi here, if you buy it from a nursery, a grafted Kalamansi tree in a nursery, typically is sort of $50, $40 to $50 in a nursery for a tree that I guess is a couple of years old and grafted. We were looking at getting one, but we just sort of never got around to it. One time we were on the other side of town and we saw a nursery. We dropped in. They are difficult to get sometimes. We dropped in and found one there, but it was $80. And we ended up buying this calamansi tree on the spur of the moment just for $80. And we brought it home and I planted it out the back, in a garden out the back that had previously had another type of kumquat, and it's one with a sort of an egg-shaped fruit, but I planted it right next to where that kumquat tree used to be, and the kumquat calamondin, which is the calamansi variety, just did terribly. So there was a little bit of growth of leaves. There were very few flowers. There was almost no fruit. We maybe had, two or three calamansis come off that tree in a 3-year period, 2 or 3 year period. So it was an absolute disaster. And I thought, I know that calamansi should grow in this region, but it just wasn't happening for me. So anyway, we were up at again our local nursery one day and saw another calamansi there that they had again grafted, again probably a couple of years old, and we decided to buy it. But this time I brought it home and planted it in a pot, again in similar full sun that we had the other one that was planted in the ground at the back, and we planted it, and it was doing pretty well. But I'm a realist. I think you should be getting more than 2 or 3 or 4 calamansi off of a tree every year, because otherwise calamansi would be an extraordinary price for the amount of time and effort that would go into growing so few trees. So look, what I did was a little bit of research online, and I found some really great resources, and I want to do a bit of a shout out, and I want to do a thank you to some YouTubers that had some really good content online. So now my Tagalog's not great, but I think Ang Magsasakang reporter, Ang Magsasakang reporter, he was great. He's got a really great YouTube video, YouTube channel. I think he's an ex-farmer who's now living in Manila. Does a lot of growing of crops and fruit and veg and stuff like that in pots. Talks a lot about making his own fertilizers and stuff. But I followed a lot of his videos on YouTube for the calamansi, and it was great. It was really good. So I wanna just shout out to him, because the good general knowledge that I got that helped me improve my calamansi came from there. Also, I think it's sideline.ph is a YouTube channel as well. That was really interesting, because they talked a lot about, and what I learned from them just sort of correlated what I knew with other citrus trees, but stressing a tree to get more crops out of a tree, and really enjoyed some of their videos and followed them quite closely. So thank you for your effort in putting the videos online, and then finally. Agri Nihan, I think it's called Agri Nihan. That's a great YouTube channel again for general farming, simplified farming, and making it accessible to everybody. What I really learned off of there was very much around the pruning of calamansi, and how not just to have a thick bush, but how to have a structured calamansi tree that put all of its or put more of its effort into growing fruit rather than growing branches and leaves. So all of those guys, thanks very much for the information that you put online, because you're a great help to me. So where did that take me, and where did we end up? We'd fertilised and I'd pruned back the calamansi tree that we put in the pot, and I'd pruned it back and I'd fertilised it, and all of a sudden we started to get more and more fruit on that tree, and it was great. It was looking really good, and my wife was getting excited because we're just about to get some calamansi off this tree, and it was awesome and everything. And then all of a sudden she says to me, "Honey, can you transplant the calamansi tree from the backyard into a pot?" And we put that out the front as well. And I thought to myself, oh no, because I'm certainly no expert at this. But I did a bit of research, and I went back to my YouTube channels, and I was having a look at what I was going to do. And I thought, okay, I'm gonna transplant this tree from the back to the front into an old terracotta pot that I had. I might do a little bit of a story on the terracotta pot another time because it had some cracks in it, and I found some interesting information on how to fix that. But I went about preparing to transplant the calamansi tree from the backyard into a pot in the front yard, and went and bought myself some decent but not really high-grade potting mix, but a pretty good composted cow manure mix, and then went to do the transplanting. So our soil here at home is quite clayey. And when I bought the original calamansi tree, it was in, I think, about a 20 or 25 centimetre pot. So I dug a hole that was maybe double the size or a bit bigger than double the size of the pot. I'd carefully taken the tree out of the pot, placed it in the hole, and then backfilled with the soil from that local area. And that's where that tree had been sitting, not producing for us for a number of years. I think it was there for about 3 years. So when I went to transplant it, when I went to dig it up, I made sure that I dug way outside of where the root ball I thought it would have been, and I tried to make sure that I wasn't distressing or disturbing any of the roots. So I dug way outside of where I would have dug the original hole, and as I was lifting and as I was moving and as I was trying to get the tree out of the ground, I finally sort of got it to a point where it looked loose enough, and I've picked it up, and as I've picked it up, the clayey soil has fallen away, and the original potting mix that was in the pot when we bought it, the potting mix fell away, and there I was, standing in the backyard, holding a bare-rooted calamansi tree, thinking to myself, I've killed it. It's never going to live. So anyway, I didn't tell my wife. I thought, I'm just going to take it out. I'm going to plant it. I'm going to do what I was intending on doing. I got the roots. There was sort of one long root. And when I put it in the pot with the potting mix, I wrapped the long root around a bit, and I tried to get it kind of centre, and I stuck a stake in, and I'd already pre-mixed the potting mix and the compost, and I put it in this old terracotta pot that I'd repaired, and I thought, well, we just got to see how it goes, but I wasn't very hopeful. So I went inside, and I prayed, and I prayed, and I prayed again, and I thought, please don't die, because she was really looking forward to having an extra calamansi tree. So I didn't have any. I wasn't going to stress the tree at that point, but it just so happened that at that time there was a lot of rain, and we were really getting a lot of rain. There was no need to water the plant. When I planted it, I'd watered it in deeply with a fish emulsion sort of fertilizer, just to help it sort of stabilise, to reduce the transplant shock. And there it sat until it stopped raining. And it stopped raining, and then all of a sudden I looked at the tree, and there was some fresh shoots coming on the tree. But about a week later, it was like a miracle, and there was this outburst of flowering activity, and it was just incredible. The number of buds that came on to this 3 or 4 year old tree that had barely ever borne any fruit, and you can see here in the videos that I've got the number of fruit that had come on, and the flowers, and then more flowers, and the first flowers wilted, and the second flowers wilted, and the first flowers turned into fruit, and it was just this progression where after transplanting this totally useless calamansi tree from the backyard into the front yard, all of a sudden some of the small fruit that had been sitting on there for ages were growing, and it just went into this flush of flower and fruiting, where, to be honest, right now I don't know whether I should be thinning out some of the fruit because there appears to be so many fruit there that when they grow, as they will, I just can't imagine that the branches of the tree are going to be strong enough to hold all of the fruit that are on there. But look, it was absolutely an experience to go through. It was something that was a bit of fun and pretty funny and a little bit nerve-wracking, and now every day we kind of walk outside our front door and we look at this calamansi tree, and our hearts feel warm, and it's all wonderful and everything else. But look, all turned out well, and I've got to say, in a huge part, thanks to the guys on YouTube that are putting their time and effort into sharing their knowledge about farming and plants and agriculture and calamansi trees, because certainly I'm no expert, but we enjoy spending our time in our garden, and we really are looking forward to the taste of the Philippines, the taste of calamansi, while we're back here in Australia and still not able to travel back to the Philippines. We absolutely love the time that we have when we get to come back to the Philippines, and there are so many things that just draw us there. Not just the family that we love and miss very much, but it's truly heaven on earth for us. And I've been going to the Philippines for many, many years, since I was a 17-year-old boy. Maybe I should make a video on that one day. But for my whole family, my brothers, my sisters, my mother, we've all had such great experiences in the Philippines, and we're looking forward to enjoying calamansi here at our home in Australia, to help us through until we get back to the Philippines. If you have enjoyed this video and you want to hear more about our experiences in the Philippines, maybe just subscribe to the video if you want. If you don't want to, I totally understand. But if you know someone who is wanting to grow calamansi or is having a bit of a calamansi challenge like we were, maybe you want to share the video with them. And if you don't want to, you don't have to as well. You can leave them struggle. But for me, it was really rewarding just seeing this plant come to life, and just seeing so many fruit coming on, and we're loving it. I'm loving it. My wife's loving it. Our kids, they don't really get what the big deal is, because it's just like, yeah, Dad, what's for dinner tonight? Mum, what's for dinner? But for us, it's been absolutely fantastic. This video has gone a little bit longer than I thought, because I'd said to my wife I can get this thing done in 6 minutes, but I talk too much and I just get a little bit too excited about some things, like calamansi trees. But thank you very much. I hope you are keeping safe wherever you are and whatever you're doing, and I hope that you always remember God first.